Chapter 2. The Generous Guy. What should I do? He's so handsome. Although KlaNo was so emotional after his only brother took his bike, when he stepped out from his house, looking right to the guy leaning against the car, that was all he could think. This kid was so handsome that it was irritating, and it made him so jealous. KlaNo was so attractive that KlaNo couldn't be mad at him. KlaNo was tall but not thin. He was muscular because of exercise. Although he was in university uniform, he looked better than KlaNo, who was in work uniform. Also, the attractive face was smiling so you could see his charming cuspid. His sharp, vivid eyes shone brightly with happiness. Anyone couldn't resist looking back at KlaNo again. However, what made KlaNo look more gorgeous wasn't his notable figure leaning against a beautiful car, but eat up and grow quickly. Chirp, chirp, chirp. The way KlaNo tore croissant into small pieces and gave them to the birds until the birds' chirping sound was in the air everywhere, and the way he was grinning while looking at the birds pecking at the bread, they showed how generous he was. And it definitely could unquestionably make girls fall for him. But this perfect guy came to pick me up? Me? Is he a driver and am I a boss? KlaNo walked from his house quietly until he was near the luxury car and looked at a reflection of himself. He was just a tall guy wearing a light color shirt and slacks with a knapsack that he had been using since his senior year. It was totally different from that kid who looked excellent in university uniform. He must be kidding about the boyfriend thing. Looking at himself again, KlaNo couldn't be more relieved because of the difference in the look, character, fashion of KlaNo and himself. There was no way that KlaNo could fall for him. What happened before must be a mistake. KlaNo was more relieved than before, so he came closer to KlaNo and intended to act as a nice big brother. But good morning, KlaNo. KlaNo saw him first and bounced to stand next to him with a bigger smile. His eyes were sparkling like 1,000 stars. Shit, those eyes gave me goosebumps. Good morning. Do Thais always greet like this, like in the dramas? KlaNo chuckled and was shocked when... Let me help you. KlaNo came closer to him and abruptly grabbed his knapsack full of documents. His junior smiled widely and also opened the car door for him. I'm 23 now, but I never open a car door for any woman. What's wrong with me? Why do I need a guy to open a door for me? Kla, I think... What? Is everything okay? His broad smile, those eyes full of hope, and the charming cuspid made KlaNo soft-hearted. Everything he wanted to say was gone. KlaNo shook his head slowly and walked like an exhausted guy to the front seat and mumbled. You don't have to pick me up. I can go by myself, actually. No, KlaNo told me he would borrow your bike today. I can't let my boyfriend take a bus. Boyfriend? The speaker smiled happily, but the listener was shocked. KlaNo's heart almost stopped because of that word. Getting in the car, KlaNo looked at KlaNo shockingly, and it made his smile disappear. KlaNo scratched his cheek gently. I'm embarrassed if you look at me like this. Shit. KlaNo couldn't say anything. He just looked at his junior, but suddenly KlaNo turned back and said something that could kill KlaNo. A handsome guy like you look at me like this? It's quite embarrassing. Should you check your eyes? The good-looking guy, in KlaNo's eyes, was yelling inside. His hand still held the door tightly, but a bit shaking because KlaNo now realized that he couldn't handle his brother's friend at all. and it seemed his action made KlaNo assume something because... kiss. Sorry, I can't help it. You kiss me? Who would believe that all of a sudden the guy in front of him would come closer, kissing him on his lips softly and breaking off? TekNo startled, looked at those begging eyes full of passion, when KlaNo whispered with his sweet voice. It made TekNo stutter. By the time TekNo finished his sentence, the person in front of him had stepped back. Because you're so lovely. What? Lovely? Now the listener wanted to say, what the fuck? To that face the most, but what he could do was taking his seat warily, looking at the car owner who smiled at him and closed the door properly. KlaNo placed TekNo's knapsack at the back before walking to the driver's seat. I get you breakfast, butter croissant, and hot cappuccino. It's still hot, so you can have it while I drive you to your office. KlaNo grabbed the paper bag with the famous brand stamp and passed to TekNo. The latter one was still stunned because that warm touch was still lingering on his lips. That touch was soft but warm, and it sent the heat to his cheek, spreading to his whole face. It allowed a virgin like TekNo, who never touched anyone before, to know what a kiss felt like. The familiar kiss like it happened before. Just now, I'm sorry. Out of the blue, KlaNo apologized, so TekNo turned to him and saw a guilty face. I should be more patient. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, I'm sorry. But you're so cute, though. TekNo could not say anything because he was caught off guard. He couldn't think straight while he started freaking out. Am I handsome? Am I cute? Am I so kissable? Nick, it must be something wrong with your friend, for sure. And I also think of that night. Spit. TekNo, sipping coffee to calm himself, choked. KlaNo, sitting next, tried to help him cleaning, but TekNo, shaking his head so hard, moved closer to the door and snatched tissue paper to close his mouth. His voice was quivering when he said, I think that we shouldn't talk about that night, please. His deep voice softened slowly, and it made KlaNo, who was driving, turn pale. You loathe? No, I don't, but it's kind of... I think that night I was drunk. I don't want to talk about it, it's embarrassing. When his brother's friend turned pale, TekNo, soft-hearted again, added quickly, shaking his head to comfort his junior, because he didn't want to feel guilt here. I make a good boy crazy for me this much. That guilt made TekNo cannot deny. TekNo immediately felt relieved when KlaNo smiled again, but he was shocked when his junior said, Don't worry, that night you were really sexy. Fall. A croissant was dropped from his hand. TekNo turned abruptly and looked KlaNo with his eyes wide open. It made KlaNo chuckle. You're like a kid, please eat properly, said KlaNo. He then grabbed the croissant on TekNo's lap and gave it back to him. However, TekNo put it in the bag because he couldn't have breakfast without choking anymore when the word sexy echoed in his head. It's been 23 years and no one calls me handsome or cute before, but today I hear them all. And the worst one is sexy. In the end, TekNo couldn't do anything but sat quietly and let KlaNo take him to the office without noticing those eyes of the person sitting next to him. Those burning eyes that intended to eat a person beside him. A wolf like KlaNo didn't attack immediately. He would raise and feed his prey to be ready to eat. Then it would be a happy meal. And what TekNo could never know for a long time was this cute guy who loved animals was born a carnivore. Bum, let's get some drink tonight. Have a plan since 9 o'clock? Have you finished all the work on your desk? After TekNo arrived at his office, had breakfast without enjoying it, and came back to his senses. His airheaded brain started thinking about how to escape his nice junior. TekNo didn't know what made KlaNo so blind to be interested in a person like himself. As said, TekNo was once a captain of his university's football team, but he always relied on his best friend, who was a vice captain. Thus, TekNo might know all the tricks in the field, but the person who planned everything was his best friend, not him. When TekNo decided not to tell Type about this, what he couldn't think was something weak and made no sense. Keep running. The way to escape KlaNo came from looking at his senior sitting next to him. TekNo asked because he realized that his senior Pum, small woman but fearless, got a car. If he went with her, he would have an excuse for KlaNo, but Pum scolded him immediately after he asked. Don't worry, I can finish it by this evening. Are you sure? Do you remember that there will be an outside event in the next 2 weeks? Everything is done? His senior asked in a serious tone and gave him a fierce look as TekNo laughed, realizing that in the next 2 weeks, the Ministry of Public Health would open a booth in an exhibition and they were in charge. Of course I remember. Why shouldn't I remember that? In fact, I already forgot since he has a boyfriend. Crank. Hey, TekNo! I ask you to work, not rest! Shouted his senior, as he, hitting his head on the table, raised his head a bit and frowned. Yesterday his seniors still worried about him, but today they seemed to be unconcerned about his preoccupied condition. Most of them concluded that TekNo was heartbroken for sure. It was coincident that the girl who worked downstairs, whom TekNo targeted, just had a boyfriend, so everyone felt sorry for him. But they knew that TekNo wouldn't be sad for so long. He would recover and be back again. That made TekNo murmur. You guys don't know that there is a good-looking guy who fell for me. Of course he couldn't say it. Why would he tell everyone? Let's get some drink tonight. No, I have a plan. When the senior next to him said no, TekNo did not say anything. TekNo still had other seniors to hang out with. Thus, all day he walked around his office asking everyone to go out to get some food and drink. However, either it was God's will or it was punishment. Everyone's answers were the same. I have a plan today. I will go shopping. There's a flea market today. Sorry, my wife asked me to come home early. I have to pick up my kids at school. Those weren't enough. TekNo, can we cancel a football match this Wednesday? No one is free on that day. What? Those words made TekNo cry out loudly, looking at the seniors who waved and went back to their office with his mouth open. TekNo didn't know whether he imagined it or he really felt the cold wind blowing at him until he almost collapsed. He wanted to grab his head with both hands and shout loudly that no one is on my side. No. Hold on. I can just tell him I have a plan. Don't need to pick me up, and I can go shopping instead. TekNo, who did nothing today and wasn't afraid that someone would scold him, snapped his fingers happily and took out his phone to send a text. He didn't make a call because he didn't want to come around. Today you don't need to pick me up, I'll go shopping. So easy. Now I can get rid of him. TekNo smiled happily, placing his cell phone in the bag, whistling, and going back to work. It never occurred to him why a person who loved sending him messages didn't reply at all. Hello, TekNo. Stop. Who is he? So handsome. The after-hours period was the same as the after-school period. It was a happy hour when you could do whatever you wanted, and it was TekNo's favorite time. He was no different from a high school student. But today, TekNo wanted his working hours to last until 8 or 9 p.m., or he could work through the night because of this handsome guy. This handsome guy who put away his cell phone as soon as he saw TekNo. This handsome guy who made everyone stare at him, especially those older ones. Today, Techno didn't have his car, so he intended to wait for the bus with his colleagues. But now, those hard-working and strict seniors who never be so energetic was looking at him with those sweet eyes as if they were seeing the most sexylicious guy. Of course, that sexylicious guy isn't me. Hello, everybody! KlaNo greeted everyone immediately and politely vied each of them while calling all of them as P. The senior holding my arm now is 45 years old, and the one you call P will retire next year. Of course, Techno kept that thought with himself. He did not want to get in trouble, so he gave them an empty smile. You can call me Pa, don't be so sweet. By the way, do you know Techno? The senior who allowed KlaNo to call her Pa asked while smiling broadly like a satellite dish. KlaNo smiled back politely, but so attractive. Yes, I do. Techno is my... brother! The moment Techno's eyes almost bulged out as he interrupted the conversation with a shout before KlaNo could introduce himself. KlaNo was startled and had a blank expression, so Techno rushed in and explained to his colleagues hurriedly. He is my brother. You two look different. What's your name, boy? My name is Kang. Oh, I just realized that we have to go somewhere. Sorry, I have to leave. Take care. Techno didn't want KlaNo to introduce himself, and want no one to ask anything. The guy who just lost his virginity grabbed the shoulder of his brother's friend, said goodbye loudly, and pushed his junior to the parking. But the good boy still tried to vie everyone. So, I have to leave now. Take care, Techno. You should vie your seniors like your brother. Techno didn't wait for scolding. He pushed his brother's friend to walk as fast as possible while wanting to cry in German. If it was different from Thai, that. I've been working here for a year. Everyone loves me, but you're just here and I become ill-mannered? While Techno was whining, he didn't notice the expression of the guy beside him that became more and more serious until they walked into an empty parking. Techno? What? Still looking back to check that no one followed them, Techno replied and turned to his junior. The face that expressed stress, sadness, and hurt made him freeze, looking at his junior who was talking in an uncertain tone. You didn't want to tell everyone that we're dating? Use your brain, we are both men. Techno definitely wanted to scold his junior, but the sad face, those dim eyes, and those lips slightly downward like a small frown made him feel sorry. I think, what should I say? We are both men, and I also work for the ministry, so I don't want any problem. Techno made an excuse quickly. He thanked himself for being able to come up with an explanation because the expression of the guy in front of him looked better, but still hurt. The expression that made him anxious. He's so cute that I feel guilty when he acts like this. I understand, but I'm sorry. Maybe I'm too self-centered. I should think more about your face. Hurt. When KlaNo talked about his face, why it was hurt. My face can't compare to you. You should worry about yours, not mine. Techno thought, wanting to grab his head, but grab. Startle. KlaNo? KlaNo suddenly held Techno's hands as the older shuddered, looking around. KlaNo confirmed that. Techno, I won't make you worried. I won't tell anyone that we're dating, but when we're together, we're a couple, right? I just want to die now. Techno kept blinking, looking at the Prince of Faculty, who was pleading and asking for his sympathy. Those hands held him tightly. The deep voice was steady, sincere, determined, and begging. The begging gesture plus the striking face made Techno's heart tremble. Of course you do. Try staring at someone a lot more handsome than yourself. Please, Techno, we're lovers, right? Right? The anxious fade made him nod unintentionally. Smile. As soon as Techno accepted, KlaNo smiled broadly, showing his adorable cuspid. His eyes dazingly shone so Techno felt like he was blinded for a moment. It was like the aura hid his eyes and he couldn't say anything. I'm so happy. I love you more and more. I really want to die. Techno, confident that his junior would be delusional, not more than 3 days, almost collapsed. He looked at KlaNo, who just confessed his love confidently with those honest eyes and a sincere smile, and started to be emotional. Could a person who dated no one and never won any girls before resist it? Kla? You want to go shopping? I got your message. Today my teacher canceled the class, so I came to pick you up. Let's go shopping and grab something to eat. I haven't eaten anything since morning. KlaNo said with a smile, and it made his face sweeter. Let's go. What should we have for dinner? Japanese food? Grilled food? Technic told me you love to have grilled food. With your friends. Techno didn't say anything while his junior suggested enthusiastically. The smile and those eyes made the person who never broke anyone's heart only respond. Grilled food sounds good for me. Okay. After they decided, KlaNo smiled and walked to his car while still naturally holding Techno's hand. KlaNo held the hand the same way he held it in the first place and led them to his luxury car. Techno could only follow him without realizing that his hand is still in his junior's warm hand, and the younger held it tightly. What kind of grilled food you like? Been busy lately? I think you're thinner than before. Whatever you want, I'm not picky. I'll choose then. I'm starving right now. I can eat you up all. Techno responded without really listening, so KlaNo smiled and continued. Nothing, I'm just rambling. Let's go, or we will be stuck in traffic, said KlaNo as he continued walking and Techno followed him. The older was unable to see the mischievous smile that made the handsome face become a Satan who disguised himself as an angel. Yes, you got it right. KlaNo wasn't craving for food, but he was craving for a person beside him. Not yet. I can't have him now. My prey will be alarmed. KlaNo told himself repeatedly. He tried to remind himself that it's better to have a hen tomorrow than an egg today. If there's a first time, there will be a second time. It's just not today. His eyes revealed everything he'd thought, but no one would know his nasty plan, except Technic. For KlaNo, Techno wasn't different from a sparrow who never noticed the imminent danger